So, I've been playing Dragon Adventures for around 4 years now, and I'd like to discuss the evolution of the bosses from way back in early 2020. I've only got screenshots of 2 older bosses, but it's enough to give you a rough idea of what they looked like. World bosses from back in 2020 didn't have much of an arena. It was more of a platform with a safe zone area where you couldn't take damage from other players outside of that area if it was a PvP world, and where the boss couldn't leave that area. There was also a 20-minute timer shown for when each boss would spawn. I don't have any older videos of their models or animations, but their animations basically were just the old mob animations you can still find in Origins to this day. It was quite boring as there weren't any fancy stages like today. It was just a bigger version of the mobs with more health and damage. 2022 is when all the bosses started getting redone with different stages, which are just the world bosses today, which, as we all know, are quite bland with some basic concepts for the different stages. However, when it came to making the first ever version of the Solstice boss, somehow it got buggier than all the other bosses, basically duplicating itself. No idea how that was even possible if the code was just copy-pasted from the pre-existing bosses, but with that being said, on to the 2023 bosses. 2023 is where bosses started to get interesting. The Robodon boss was the first boss to actually have custom animations for once, with different mechanics for each round. The Robodon boss, compared to every other boss, made all the world bosses look pretty bad at the time, and it still do today. While it did have some pretty annoying bugs you kind of just had to deal with, like teleporting into the middle of the arena if you got too close to the walls when dashing towards them, or the minions being able to hit you from across the arena, it was pretty well made, and everyone was pretty happy. Next is the Paradox boss. This boss is definitely my second favorite boss due to each round being somewhat different than the last, and didn't reuse the same concepts from the Robodon boss. The arena looked outstanding and worked really well with the whole haunted house theme. It was honestly perfect. My favorite thing about this boss, which made it my favorite, is the last stage where you have to dodge and weave between fire to deal damage to the boss. With the second stage taking up a lot of time, the whole boss fight was around 8 minutes total. It was still pretty fun though, even though it was 8 minutes. There weren't any bugs that I could think of that made this boss annoying to do. It was just the second stage, which was cool in concept but took up a lot more time than it needed to. And with only getting like 1 to 2 eggs per fight, and sometimes taking like 8+ minutes to do, the rewards just didn't feel worth it at the end. And now for the most recent boss, the 2024 Solstice boss. This boss by far is one of my favorites from its design, animations, all the way to its music. This boss should be an example of how bosses going forward should be with next to perfect hitbox detection, while hiding behind pillars. I expected there'd be a lot more issues with lasers hitting you while you're behind the pillars, but so far I haven't noticed it happen. I don't have many complaints for this boss, as a lot of things have been fixed, such as some performance issues, though they're still noticeable when there's around 6 or 8 people flying around all at once with 5 lasers going on all at the same time. Or the lasers causing lag if they're dealing damage to you at the same time the nukes from the 3rd stage are happening. Though receiving only 1 egg from the fight can be rather insulting after you just carried a whole server to victory after 6+ minutes of fighting the boss. I thought the rewards should be damage based. Do X amount of damage and get better rewards or something. As a whole though, all these bosses are pretty good in their own way, especially for the most recent one, which to my knowledge was coded all by Flight Theory themselves, which that's crazy. That's amazing. It's a really good boss, especially for their first boss that they've done for the game. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But that's pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching and happy solstice.